I am Asavri Tamane, Secretary, Sitlob. On behalf of everyone at Reverie and Sitlob, I would like to thank you all for being here today for our panel discussion on debunking automation misnomers for India's translation industry. In an effort to eliminate any kind of disturbance, all participants are muted throughout the duration of this panel discussion. In case you would like to ask any questions to our panelists, please feel free to type the same in the chat box. I'm sure at the end of the webinar, we'll take all these questions. As a follow-up to the panel discussion, we will also be having Reverie's Prabandhak showcased. On this note, I would now request Siddharth Sahu from Reverie to please lead us to the panel discussion. Over to you, Siddharth.
Thank you, Asavri. Good evening, everyone, and hope everybody is safe in their respective houses and that everybody is healthy and safe. So to start off this evening, we have a great panel with us, and we are addressing a really exciting topic. And so lately it has been observed that the next billion customers for any industry segment or across industries are the ones that want to use internet in their own languages, and the translation industry is going to be the biggest enabler for the same. India, with close to 500 million local language users, internet users, is proving to be a key growth driver for the translation as well as the localization industry. Now, trends across businesses in the last 5 years have been vividly depicting a strong pivot in their content strategy focused at local languages. This approach actually makes room for growth as it enables brands to reach broad audiences that actually aren't fluent in English. Now, when the industry is seeing so many dynamic changes, it is only logical that the industry comes together to acknowledge that technology adoption is the way forward. And in our webinar today, we have our esteemed panelists to discuss on the topic, like Asavri was mentioning, debunking automation misnomers for India's translation industry. I'm glad to have the opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists. They are stalwarts from the localization industry. Today we have Mr. Biraj Rath, CEO of Brahmam. We have Mr. Sandeep Nulkar, founder and CEO, BITS and Vernac Language Technologies. We have Mr. ML Sudheen, president of Crystal Hughes Limited. And last but not the least, our very own Vinay Raj, vice president translation services from Reverie Language Technologies. Without much further ado, I would like to start off our panel discussion with our first topic at hand. So the first topic that we have is technology and automation as an enabler to enhance productivity to meet current market demands. So if we are to start, let's start alphabetically with let's say Viraj. So if we can start off the discussion with you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Siddharth, for this invitation, and hello to everybody, and for taking time today to attend this. I think taking the first question, Siddharth, I think really this is a no-brainer question in the sense that I think everybody knows at our level that technology and automation is always used in the first place to improve productivity. That's for sure. But what is important in our market is really getting it as a message down the stream, because we have all kinds of people in our industry. So we have people who are just translators, then we have people who review the content, we have quality control and linguists who do other kind of linguistic tasks as well, which includes quality control and stuff like that. So I think over a period of time, like, I have been associated with this industry for 20 years. And back when, even Sudhinji would also be, aware of the fact that, back then, most of the Indian languages actually did not have even a CAT tool that was supported.
Right.
It's actually quite lately, I think after only 2007 did we have some international companies supporting CAT tools. And even then for the next 2 years, so they were not even perfect. They used to have all kinds of problems. Strangely, you would also notice that there are still a lot of these international companies who still don't have a very good proofing tools. For example, if you look at Indian language spell checks,
Yes.
it's very difficult to find on most of the, even MS Word for that matter. Let's
Correct.
not go too far, right? You don't have good proofing tools. And so I think even as simple as if anybody can introduce a translation system which has some of the language rules to just control spelling, quality control, and basics in Indian language. Of course there are, and we'll speak about that much later. But I think since then to now there has been a lot of change in
Yeah.
the market, and definitely technology. Initially, I think different technologies have made a lot of difference, and now I think in the last 2 years the automation part is really catching on when we talk about translation, technologies that enable faster translation, I would say.
Right, right. Great inputs from you, sir. If we can go to ML Sudhin, sir, then it'll be great to have your opinions on this.
Thank you very much for having me on the panel. I totally concur with what Viraj said, that this is an absolute no-brainer, that technology is an inevitable and inescapable event now in the translation industry. So, and this has been one of our basic challenges right from beginning. So we had in one of the other, I was sitting with a person who who actually standardized Indian language scripts and codes, for global audiences. And so you can imagine where we are from standardizing language codes to automating and using technologies for translation. We have come out. We have traveled a long journey till now, and I'm sure much more is needed. Like Viraj says, it's the technology adoption at the roots is something that we are really looking at. Right to the freelance translators, right to the end users, so that the content is available. Otherwise, the content will stay in some language which they cannot really consume.
Right. The entire process, you would mean, like from the content creation part till the content translation and delivery, the whole process needs is adapting to a lot of technology changes. Thank you, sir, for your inputs. If I can go to Sandeep for his valuable inputs, then it will be great.
Sandeep, you are on mute.
That's, I think, the most repeated sentence of the century or something. So before I begin, I really wanted to take a minute to thank Reverie for partnering with Sitlob and doing this. I think we really need these kind of discussions, bring more faces, bring more voices and opinions, and that's really going to put the focus on our industry. Uh, Without really repeating what Biraj and Sudhi said, I just wanted to say this in a little different way. I think it's only the language technology industry that even makes our industry an industry. Minus language technology, the Stone Age translator is practically dead now. So without technology and without automation, you cannot really function. So in that sense, like both of them said, absolutely a no-brainer, completely important. Uh, I also wanted to point out that when we talk about automation, we need to think a step beyond translations too, because translation is not the only thing that probably the end users are looking for today. They're looking for voiceovers and subtitling, basically content management, and all of this. And technology and automation should also allow the demand side as well as the supply side to integrate seamlessly into the entire process of translation and localization of so many other things that go beyond text. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Sandeep, for your inputs. Vinay, like all our panelists have seconded primarily each other's point that yes, definitely the technology adoption is a great thing that has been happening and evolving over time. So, don't you think it is a double-edged sword? And there are still apprehensions regarding technology adoption, especially when we talk about data security.
Definitely, Siddharth. Thanks a lot for all the inputs. Yeah, actually, like it's spot on. Whatever Sudhin, Biraj, and Sandeep told. Actually, yeah, the technology enhancement is not only restricted to only the translation thing. So yes, it is relevant to the voiceover, subtitling, even like the transcription industry is also where it is growing in India. Okay, so most of the times, whenever I'm talking about these jargons, TMS, CAT tool, STT, TTS, and NMT, the people will be thinking like, "Wow, what he is talking about? It's a new technology or something like that." Though we are using that technology from last 5 years or 6 years, the people still need to understand that. So majorly when it comes to any of the services, the project management is a major aspect. Automating the translation management system or the localization system, which helps to actually route the jobs to the appropriate resources, is very important, which is a most time taking consuming the task. And even like we know that terminology finders management helps to improve the qualities, and even the CAT tool helps to identify the known entities and link it. When I talk about known entities, yeah, it will be like repetitions or and even the translation memory. Okay, so using the appropriate technology definitely will increase the productivity by 300% as per some of the analysis. And even like the technology companies like us keep on building the technologies and the product to improvise the Indian language industry. And when it comes to data security, yes, it is a big question mark whenever we are using any of the technology, not only like translation technology or something. But yes, so if you are using the free tools, yes, definitely there is a threat on data security. So if you are reading the proper annotations and everything and signing up with the contracts, then yeah, definitely the data security part will be taken care.
Great.
If I
Yeah,
can,
Sandeep, if you have something to add, please.
Yeah, I just wanted a comment from Vinay on this aspect, because I know this is something that's been spoken in the industry for a long time. People just talk about it, but what is the solution? As in, just for the sake of putting that on record, because obviously a lot of LSPs uh, need to kind of go and start a dialogue with their clients about how their data is secure. And these are questions that we are often asked, as in, if it's like Google, then of course people are very scared because your data is practically going to be in the public domain in all probability. If it's actually not that kind of a solution, but a very private solution, just maybe a couple of sentences for the benefit of the audience. It
Yeah,
would be
Sandeep, definitely. Like, yeah, definitely. We know that key whenever we talk to the clients, we tell that yes, all our resources are the freelancers or the internal resources are bonded with the NDA CDAs and blah blah blah. But even the client don't know what is that NDA CDA. Some of the clients will emphasize that their own NDA CDA. But end of the day, when we are sending it to the translation, so how the freelancer or the translator using the data, it is nowhere in our hands. But especially some of the tools which are available in the market, where you can restrict the usage of the data, like you can restrict them to download the data, and you can restrict them only to read only, and only use the CAT tool to do the translation, and you can restrict them on the copy paste actions and everything. So there are available. And even like when it comes to the data security, first thing is we need to check about the servers, where is it hosted, and what kind of data security norms it has been taken up. Even can Siddharth can tell that. So some of the data security things, so we signed up for. So these are the things we need to check that before we are signing it to any of the CAT tools or the TMS or something like that.
Thanks.
And if I were to add my 2 cents to this entire topic of discussion, being connected with tech, so I have primarily been an engineer in the localization industry for over 6 7 years now, and my experience with data security, especially when it comes to translation engines or CAT tools, or let's say any sort of project management tool, where we are handling translation jobs. If the first barrier is solved just by going on cloud and having a transparent framework deployed somewhere on the cloud, which is absolutely transparent to all the three categories of users, which is the clients, the freelancers, the LSPs, project managers, all of them, all on the same platform. That actually solves one of the major barriers. But things like government policies, which have been there introduced in European countries, like the GDPR policies and all. So those sort of things, if they come into play here in India, then that is definitely going to be a booster for clients to get a confidence that, okay, my data is secure, and these guys are going to do a fine job, because they are anyways, I mean, there is a law regarding it, so I'm sorted. I don't have to worry about more or less. But yeah, this definitely, I mean, I'll not take much time, but I think a food for thought is, right now, a lot of security aspects are being addressed by probably the most revolutionary technology that we have seen, which is the blockchain. So there is no centralized authority on your data or anything. So your data is completely yours if you publish it on a decentralized network. So maybe it can be a food for thought for any of our upcoming project, like webinars or seminars, right? All right, great inputs from everyone, and let me jump on to the next topic that we have. So the next topic is basically: do you think machine plus human can address the growing needs of the Indian language localization? And why don't you start off this
Yeah,
topic?
Siddharth, thank you. So according to me, like MT or the NMT, the machine translation, the neural machine translation will not give 100% expected results. Okay, MT can be used directly for only for the internal purposes, maybe the internal communication or the simple data set. But human intervention is always needed to meet the expected target audience and the reader who is reading that content. Okay, so again, there are several questions when we are addressing this. Do MT replace the human translation? Many people ask these questions always. Answer is no, as on today. But adaptive NMT will decently enhance your productivity, and it will form the linguistic opinion, and it will give you the very good suggestions when you are using regularly, and if you are training that data properly. One thing the translator is needed is the training. Okay, so basic things. So whoever it is, like if you want to become MTP, like machine translation posted it. So there is a smart amount of training which is required. So on that basis, like if you are using the CAT tools which are enabled with the neural machine translation, definitely we saw that the people are giving the productivity and which is 3x to 4x, and with a very good quality aspects. Okay, so pure MT or pure human translation cannot address the growing needs. That is my opinion. It should be a combined integration solution to meet the growing needs.
Great, great. I would like to go to Sandeep now. Sandeep, what about your input on the same?
I think machine and human coming together should definitely be able to produce a quality that is very usable. That being said, I think we need to consider a few factors, and I'm just saying them in no specific order. Something that you realize once you start getting into this kind of an activity is that anyone who really has great command over their mother tongues might not necessarily have a great command over English. The other factor is, by virtue of being a translator, you need not be very qualified in the subject that you are post editing. And that is where I think a typical MT plus PE or MTR becomes a bandar ke haath mein bandook kind of a situation, where you have the tool, but do you have the capacity to use it to its optimum. Because if you don't, then the output is not really going to be great. And in that sense, your MT is only as good as your reviewer. So I think the quality of review, and by that I mean we really people talk about democratizing the internet. I think we also need to democratize the review side when you're talking about machine translation and post editing, and involve more domain specific educated people in the supply chain who need not really become translators or reviewers by profession, but they should be enabled and empowered to do so for whatever time they want allocate for some activity like this. So I think the crux, in short, in my view, lies in the quality of the review, and not just. So you can't just say MT plus review. It's MT plus what quality of review? How is it
Right.
so? How is it trained?
Right. Great inputs. Thank you, Sandeep. Sudhin sir, if you can shed some light on this topic.
Very wonderfully put by Sandeep and Vinay, that the tool is as good as the person holding it. Uh, and especially so in translation. Translation requires a lot of customization, and translation by nature, the word English, the language by itself is not logical. It does not follow any logical, rules. So, being dynamic in nature, you need to have somebody to bring that customization, or have a review of the content, which may be very different from, the translation would be good, but what is the end user requirement? That would be very, very different. So having understood the end user requirement and delivering as per the end user content requirements, that is very, very important. And that can be done by a human interface or a reviewer who really goes through the empty content that comes out of the engine. I think there's no doubt about it.
Right. Great. Thanks, Sudhin sir. Coming to Viraj sir, so your inputs on the same, please.
I think much has been said about this, and I want to take to a little different angle on this. Is we've had a lot of experience in the last 3 years on the MT plus PE kind of a system, and there are some unfortunate parts of the story, which is that because there is a lot of investment which has gone into the MT field, there is an unfortunate trend which I also see in the market. Is it is being sold as a magic machine, which is that you put chicken on this side and the mincemeat comes out. In fact, I would put it the other way, that a lot of people are selling it by saying put the mincemeat on the other side and you'll get back a chicken. Right. So I think one has to understand that that's not the case in most cases, especially in certain kind of domains. It's absolutely not something that happens. And the unfortunate part of that is everybody else in the value chain gets devalued, because ultimately I can tell you a small conversation with one of our clients is, what do you have to do as an LSP really? I mean, you just put in the mincemeat and the chicken comes out. You just have to count the feathers and give it to us, basically. Whereas we know for sure that that's not how automation actually works, because the other thing about automation is, if there is any one point in the automation process which is not correct, it's very difficult to catch hold of that point. And because always it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? So it's if there is one process in the automation which is wrong, and I can tell you thousands of examples where it's been like 6 months and 1 year, people still haven't been able to figure out, completely believing that it works perfectly well.
Correct.
And that's where I think that immense amount of caution is required to present the technologies and the expectation of the technology to the customers properly, and not just to the customers. But I think that's where I see some concerns in the chat also from the freelancers.
Absolutely.
Is
yeah
I think the point here that I wanted to also address indirectly for these messages is this, that there is plenty of domains and there is plenty of content in this world which the MT at the moment and maybe for the next 3 to 4 years cannot really directly address. And I
Yes.
can give you a very simple example. I've been to so many, technology research places internationally, and I can tell you a very simple example that people have started to using, automated subtitling for videos, but they can't do it for a movie because the background noise in the movie, puts out the subtitling engine completely.
Right.
Right. So they still haven't found out a way to automate, the speech to text system when there are loud noises and, unpredictable loud noises at that. So, so there are plenty of such applications, and going forward, because there's a lot of media related content which is getting more and more popular on the system. I think it's, very important to understand that while the general statement is true that, it will definitely address, some of the things of the growing demand, but it is also important to be careful in implementing the technology solution and keep the customer educated as to what is possible at the current time. It's not really a magic. And I
Right.
think the people also need to be upskilled, in the sense that what I'm realizing now, that the technology is moving faster than the reskilling of people. So at this point of time, if you look at the fact that, typically what happens is that we send out, post editing content to old, traditional translators. They are not really post editors. So we have to have a totally new set of people added to our, industry, which should purely be called as post editors,
Right.
because they are not translators. And the whole workflow of a post editing is very different from a review or a translation typically. But
Absolutely.
because of the dearth in this kind of and I don't think there is anybody really seriously looking at this problem 5 years down the line. We will seriously even now, in fact, we get a lot of projects where the content volume of content is very high, very difficult to get good quality post editors. So I think there are, a lot of these gaps which need to kind of keep filling up, and there's a lot of career counseling that needs to be also,
Yes.
put through with it.
Absolutely. I see. Yeah. If anybody has to add anything in the last bits, please.
Yeah, correct. As Biresh told, yeah, skill development is very important when it comes to post editors. Okay, that's why I added the training word when I'm talking about. So training is very important to train the translators on the post editing job. If as we told, like the traditional translator definitely cannot be a post editor. Okay, so he need to enhance his skill set. Even the
No, I
people.
would disagree on that. They definitely can be, but I think the mental model needs to change a
Needs
little bit,
changed.
and that
Yeah,
retraining will make them change over the whole thing. But
correct.
but as it is, I think, I don't think we are treating them fairly in that sense. By asking translators to or reviewers to become post editors without giving them a proper background training and stuff like that.
That's
Because I
true.
think the opportunity to earn from post editing is, in today's world, maybe for the next 5 years, is probably going to be better earning, this thing, as compared to a traditional translator. But I think both have their own markets in that sense.
Yes, correct. So I was coming to that. So that's what I was telling. Like so many people come to us asking for, what do I need to get into any of the training to do the machine translation post editing? Is there any specific courses for that or something like that? No, it is not a rocket science actually. So if you are experienced translators, so definitely like you need to put yourself in that shoes and start trying that. He understand how it works, the algorithms you need to understand and everything. So then definitely like over a time, maybe 1 or 2 months, so once you will start doing that, so automatically you will get into that. Only that what we tell it is like regular use and adoption is very important, where sometimes like it will take a backbench rather than adopting the new things.
Right. 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 Great insights. Yeah. Yeah. Sandeep, you want to add something?
Yeah, just a quick point here, because we've done a fair amount of work in MTP over the last 2 or 3 years. So I think there's a very quick basic change that needs to happen on either side. One is on the side of LSPs and one is on the side of translators. Then in that case, they can very easily integrate themselves into the system as post editors. The change on the side of LSPs is to actually be able to understand and then convey as to what level of quality is acceptable. Because very often we find that even if it's MTP, people do expect human quality. And to be very, very fair, that's not possible. For whatever it's worth and whatever the level of quality is, let's call it X. Your MTP is never going to be X. It can be X plus 1, it can be X minus 1, it can never be X. So the LSP needs to very clearly communicate to the translator slash post editor as to what is okay and what is not okay. Because perfection to the level of a very good translation might not be possible. The other thing that, and that's a very simple change on the part of the freelancer, the translator who is now reskilling to be a post editor. And I've said this earlier, that translators come from a very different mindset. The moment you see MT quality, which is bad, the translator's mind is programmed to focus on what is wrong. I think what needs to be taught is to focus on what is right.
Right.
That's the primary paradigm shift that we need. The moment you say, okay, at least 20 words are right, at least I don't need to type out 20 words, as opposed to 17 words are wrong. It's obviously going to be wrong, and which is why you are there.
Right.
And that is, of course, no excuse for poor MT quality, which needs to improve over time, and especially for our languages. But
Absolutely.
these are a couple of things that I thought I wanted to say. Thanks.
Absolutely. Great. Great. And to add to the end of this particular topic, so I recollect that 4 to 5 years back, or probably 5 to 6 years back, when machine translation was just slowly coming up to quality and speed. During that time, the general sentiment across translators while interacting with any sort of such machine was that they had this condescending attitude towards the machine that hey, I would love to see you try translating this sentence and see what has changed over the years, that we are getting so many apprehensive questions on the chat itself, that does it mean that it is a threat? So over the period of time it has improved, but till it can only grow to so much, because after all it is a machine, and languages themselves keep changing every day. The way of writing sentences across industries, across segments, they keep on changing. And that is why, which is only adaptable by humans at best and not machines, if we look at the most recent research papers. And none of these sort of discussions can end without a small example of mistranslation. So I would like to cite a small example where we were actually trying to localize, I guess, some map strings, and it was a navigation string about there is this restaurant called Republic of Chicken, and it said that okay, your destination Republic of Chicken is going to be in the next 4 miles or something like that, and it actually got translated into Murgiyon ka Ganatantra in Hindi. So so when machines, even after the most Hindi being one of the highest resource, I mean, for machine translation at least, it is very rich in resources. Still, I mean, when something or the other just comes out once in a while, it just gives you that confidence that okay, humans are the way to go. Never machines are going to. They can at most be enablers, but they can never be replacers. I think Sudhin sir was about to add something. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. The fear that the translators might become redundant, that is totally misplaced. I have been seeing this fear for so many years now, probably more than 15 years. But I think that's the first time the technology on translation were happening around the world. I have seen that most of the translators have graduated to these technologies very easily. Of course, very few have registered the adoption of these technologies, but they have started using, including like Virat says, as simple as MS Word having these. I mean, I have seen translators who refuse to use a computer. Now they are masters at using the computers. So they were using handwritten translations at certain point of time. So, but yes, the most important thing that the translators need to really adopt is open to learning these new technologies or open to adopting these new technologies. And believe me, there's so much of, I see a deluge of work that, that needs to be translated into various languages. Look at the way the government is going into the localization of into Indian languages content. Just the government's content into Indian languages is incredible amount of work, and it's impossible for a human translation bank, however large, to manage that kind of volume at least. And that volume, even with all the technology that is available, probably it will take maybe another 15 years to really get there, where we are trying to reach. So there's a lot of volume there, and unless you really adopt these technologies, and like Virat said, and Sandeep also said that, you need to really become a post editor, open to being a post editor along with being a good translator. So that's a very critical, that's a transition that needs to be really managed by everyone involved in adopting these technologies.
Nice. Thanks. Could not have been summed up better. Thanks a lot. So coming to the third topic, which is technology adoption can help in engaging the new generation of translators or linguists. How easily can technology adoption help us find or discover new generation of linguists and translators? So we can. I would like to start off with Sudhin, maybe.
Yeah, very interesting topic. Well, the new generation is anyway, I think, early adopters, or I think they're born into technology. I think for them, technology adoption is part and parcel of their daily routine. But having said so, you have so many linguists coming out of colleges and universities across India. And I think with technology, what is going to happen is they will have a platform to really engage with opportunities to, make a livelihood out of the academic and, the professional skills that they acquired during their, learning years. So this is, I think, a huge opportunity. These technology adoption would be a huge opportunity for really making it, a livelihood activity rather than just a hobby. Having learned a language in universities and colleges. I think this is a brilliant opportunity. Yeah.
Great. Coming to Vinay, maybe you can share your inputs on this.
Yeah. So correct, as Sudhin told, that is very important. India got a huge talent pool, that too, the new generation people who are the tech savvy. Okay, so first we need to start considering the translation as a profession like other professional services. The new generation should start thinking translation as a professional line of business, not like a part-time job. Okay, I'm free for 2 hours, I will do that or something like that. Okay, so current generation, as I told, it's a tech savvy. So they may not like to work in the traditional translation environment, how we are working now. Maybe like if you are telling them to giving a Word file to do the translation, so keep another Word file open, they will tell that, oh, how boring it is. No. So they need a specific environment to work. Maybe like technology enabled environment. Okay, so their new generation are willing to adopt the technology and enhance their skills. That is very important. If they are coming, so that is for enhancing their skills, not like doing the 9 hours job and get out. Okay, so India got huge pool, as told, like Sudhin told, like there are number of thousands of graduation, post graduation pass out every year. Okay, but only thing is, like, we need to show them the road, how professional it is, how much earnings they can do, how they can do the skill development with this. And even like when we are talking about domain specific translations, Okay, still we don't have the domain specific translation. If I'm asking like if any user manual for the electrical engineer or something like that, we don't get. We will be using the regular translator who may be having the knowledge of that, not like a domain specific translators or something like that. So we can, yes, utilize this huge pool and build the domain specific professionals or the translators, rather the generic translator with the having the translation flavor or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Like they are the early adopters and they can be molded how we want.
Great, great. Yeah. So Sandeep, would you like to add something to this? Uh, Sandeep, I think you're on mute.
But I said a slight counter view, as much as there is nothing to disagree in principle with what everyone has said, as in youngsters are born into technology, that's all they know, honestly. I'm personally not very sure about their language skills, as in how many of us know youngsters who are probably just graduates, and how many of them really speak the quality or speak, read, write the quality of language that probably their fathers or their grandfathers did. So I'm not saying that's a deal breaker. I'm just saying that's a point that one needs to consider. As in, I have heard Tamilians complain about this the most,
Yeah.
that our children don't speak the quality of Tamil we spoke. And if I try to, put what you have just said in this kind of a formula where we are trying to now implement a solution for Tamil, we really have a problem on hand, because there are people who don't really find their Tamil uh, very useful because it's not really up to the desired level. So I think there again is a loophole there, but on a technology front, there's absolutely nothing to disagree. And I'm sure Tamil is just one example because I just
Right.
happened to speak to a few people who complained about that. But I can speak for myself. I can speak for Marathi. The quality of Marathi that probably a graduate speaks today and is able to write, because most Indian languages are written very differently from
Correct.
how they are spoken. So you
Correct.
might at best be very conversant with the colloquial aspect, but the moment you're asked to write the bookish language, you're lost. So that's a little gap that we need to be careful.
That's a beautiful point regarding Kathita and Likhita, the two segregations that we usually have in every Indian language.
That
Viraj,
said,
would you like to?
when you're talking about code mixed languages, which is exactly what works today in the
Right.
market, I think the youngsters, these exact same youngsters that we are not so sure about, become great assets, and their fathers not so much,
Right.
because they will be prudes and have a view on how everything has to be very pure. But youngsters will just use a couple of English words and get done with it. So
Right. Right.
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth. So I think some of the points Sandeep has already stolen from me. I was planning to talk about that, but that's an interesting point. But also, I would like to say, in addition to that, my viewpoint is it's slightly different. Staying abroad for a long time, what I've noticed is there are particularly some languages in India and people belonging to that place, they don't have that pride in their language. That's where the problem starts actually. And I can talk about my own hometown, which I don't want to name here, but my point is that you will find even small tea shops having an incorrect English spelling, but they would know their mother tongue much better, but they still want to write the barber shop or the pawn shop or whatever, and all the spellings will be wrong in English in there. I mean, there is so much of a degradation in terms of our own confidence level about our own language that nobody wants to send them to regular government schools or even regular schools that have got a medium of instruction as the base language from that state or whatever. And everybody seems to be going into the English medium, but we don't tend to see that a lot in the international community. I mean, if you look at China, if you look at Japan, even most of the European countries, they have a lot of, I mean, I wouldn't even call it pride. It's just natural to them, right? I mean, the moment they are born, it's just natural for them to learn that language. and do everything in that language, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not very far from where I am staying. I mean, if you just walk into Netherlands or Sweden or whatever, they are just normally talking their own language, their buses and their if you pick up a biscuit packet or something like that, the general packaging instruction will be in their own language. You may not even, in fact, I have had tough in Czech Republic, where every label is in their own language, and you can't even identify whether it is curd, milk, or it's something else in the milk product, because it all looks white, right? And I had a tough time buying milk because I didn't know what I was buying, and incidentally, when I bought it, it turned out to be condensed milk and not milk. So the point is that you have to have the understanding that everybody is tuned into their own language being the first vehicle to do that learning or anything else, right? Otherwise, technology can only do so much. It cannot give birth to kids and teach them that language, right? It's
Right.
like
Right.
we just mentioned, it's an enabler. So while like Sandeep said, it is okay for the enablement and the stuff is available, but somebody needs to be able to jump to that technology to use it, right? If you don't even have the basic skills, like Sudhinji was saying, if you still continue to write on paper,
Right.
and you don't even know the basic alphabets and how to use a certain thing, while that is true for India, but I have had some great examples in crowdsourcing in the European area, where in the French market, one of the large companies, they realized that they didn't have time to localize their product. So what they did was they created a crowdsourcing system, and they had a lot of users already online, and they requested all their users to translate all the strings, and they may of course made all the technology stuff to do moderation and stuff like that. Can you believe they could translate more than like 650,000 lines within some 48 hours or something, on completely on voluntary basis? And of course, it had to, they used an LSP to do all the moderation, cleanup and stuff like that. But look, this is the power of people who are very passionate about, they were passionate about the product, not about their language actually,
Right.
right? And this has happened a lot in the gaming industry, by the way, where
Absolutely.
they don't even use the linguists, they use the gamers to actually
Yeah.
do the translation. Do you know that?
Yes.
Including the voices.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Great inputs from everyone, and I think to with this we have come to the final topic of discussion. So I'll just drop it. So the final topic is Black Swan events trigger digital transformation, and more companies are poised to include regional content for greater customer engagement. Is India's translation industry ready to drive this change? So I think this particular topic encapsulates a lot within it, and I'm absolutely eager to check out your inputs on this. So we'll start off with Sandeep maybe. Sandeep, your mic is muted.
What's wrong with me? Okay. So yeah, if it's a yes or no answer, then no.
It's absolutely not a yes or no a question.
If days are allowed, then yeah, we can manage somehow. But no, as in the scale of what really needs to be done today is so vast, and we are kind of just about waking up from a deep slumber. So, as an industry, technology happened to languages only probably 15 years ago, and that too it was very nascent. Now it's only now that we are picking up. So I think there is some distance to cover. Uh, Even if you really talk about just purely translating, I think we are going to have a serious problem when it comes to the supply side. We are going to have a serious problem when it comes to so many other things that Biraj pointed out. Proofing tools and so many technology driven initiatives still need to be done. So uh, I'm not trying to sound gloomy, but I'm sure there's a reason why people prefer gamers than translators. As in, you don't really prefer someone who studied biology to treat you. You still want a doctor. But that's not the same when it comes to, the user has a specific value because some translators can, but most translators can't bring that value. So I think still some distance to cover. It was all fine till the volumes were not that high. With higher volumes, the cracks will be able.
Great. So jumping on to Viraj sir, maybe like if
Sure.
anybody wants to
Yeah,
go
sure. Thanks. So
ahead.
I have 2 points here, quick points. I think we are just running out of time. So I think the quick points is, I think in terms of the I hope everybody understand the Black Swan events, because I took a little bit of time to kind of, so just as an example, COVID is actually a Black Swan event, isn't it? As I understand it, right? So I think whenever such a crisis happens, the thing is quite uneven. It doesn't work very well in all the directions. So if you look at people who were affluent and who could afford to buy tablets and mobile phones, they can probably afford online education. And if you have 3 kids, you have to buy 3 different devices, and you have to have 3 separate rooms and enough broadband to be able to do it. Well, that's not the case with a lot of the population which cannot afford that. They don't have internet access. And by the way, this is not just for India, this is happening all over the world, which doesn't actually get highlighted anywhere. It's a huge problem. So I think in certain parts it got accelerated. People who could afford to invest and move to the digital transformation, they put in the money and they moved, and so they will see some of the benefits there. But I think as an overall situation, while there will be certain interesting trends there, I don't think we should lose the sight of the fact that during these kind of events there is a lot of backwardliness which also comes, because overall, as a world or an economy, ultimately the consumer is that person who wants to spend. If the overall spending goes down, whatever spend you might do in the technology or whatever is not going to become successful in the long run, right? You need people to have a certain amount of spending power to be able to do it, right? So while technology direction may have changed, and people can actually jump into it, but there are enough examples. For example, here, if people have jumped onto doing an e-commerce shop, for example, everybody wants to, in the European area, have the e-commerce shop translated into multiple languages. Great. But the problem is, when it comes to shipping charges, everybody knows you can't ship a €3 book at €5, right? So there are practical problems which tend to happen. And then the second point quickly is this, that I think a lot of the question on this answer depends on the customer side. Especially in India, if the customer does not want to spend on Indian language localization, they are not convinced about it, and they don't have an idea of the return on investment for what they are going to spend on Indian languages. Whatever we might do on the provider side is not going to change, because ultimately they are going to pay the money, right? So I think that those are the two quick points on that.
Absolutely.
I'll
So
just add a couple of points,
sure.
as a quick point. Technology has also made it accessible. The content accessible to people who probably didn't have that access before.
Right.
And at very affordable rates. So, for example, if a person wanted to translate or a client wanted to translate certain content 5 years back, it was an expensive proposition. Today, he can translate this probably 5 times that amount of content with about the same price. So today he is able to take calls on because his cost has come down to, and probably that is the reason why I think that there's a deluge of volume that's coming up for translation. And then, of course, it is also driven by government initiatives and many other initiatives. But just the fact that the cost has been optimized, the access to technology has become much more easier. Consumption of these content at mass level has increased many-fold, which didn't, all these things were not there before. And I think, like Biraj said, pandemic has actually accelerated this whole thing by 5 years, probably, in just 1 year. I think that this is a huge opportunity for for freelancers, for every stakeholder in the language industry. It's a huge opportunity, and how we actually capitalize on it is purely, I think, how we are able to really make use of the technologies that is available to us. That's what I would say. Thank you.
That's absolutely great. Vinay, any closing points? And Sandeep already raised his hand.
I was trying to listen, yes, from any of the panelists, but unfortunately, so no come from everybody. Okay, yes, there is a huge scope of improvement when it comes to the market demand and the supply side. It is not only for the translation, so all other services, which includes transliteration, transcription, voice solutions, and localization. Demand is majorly grown from last 2 or 3 years from the government sectors and even from the BFSI, e-learning, and pharma sector. Okay, so again, we need to check that from last 5 years, there is a significant amount of improvements on the technology side, especially when it comes to Indian languages. Be it is neural machine translation or speech to text or text to speech for the voice and even the transliteration engines for automate the complete citizen engagement programs and everything. Okay, but if we don't use the technology, then it will be difficult to handle the market demand. That is for sure. Technology adoption is not just uh, as I told, restricted to translation. Yes, translation is a very important aspect when it comes to other services also. Okay, so when it comes to Indian languages, still we have a huge volume of Indian translation work, which is coming from outside the India. Maybe from the international LSPs or throwing it to the Indian LSPs. Sorry to use that word, throwing it, but somewhat it looks like that. Okay, maybe because that they think like we are not well equipped with the technology to meet the client's expectations. Maybe it comes to TAT or the quality, several aspects. Okay, and even again we need to check that any technology will not mature itself on its own. Okay, so we need to try to use it, adopt it, and train it. Okay, so various organizations, including Reverie, we are working towards building the better technology for Indian languages. And yes, we are the one. We are the one means not only the LSPs, it includes all the translator community, voice community, and everything. We are the one who should drive this change. Try to build the strong and stable technology-enabled environment for, especially for the Indian language industry.
Absolutely. Sandeep, let, let,
I just wanted to add something to what Biraj and Sudhir said, that and this is not something that comes from me. It actually comes out of a conversation I was having with Vivek Pani a couple of months ago. And although there is a lot of demand for consumption, and Biraj spoke about the client side, why aren't more and more clients ordering more and more content to be localized into Indian languages? Because boardrooms normally function on data, and the data doesn't show a great demand for Indian languages. One of the reasons is discoverability of content. That really has a technical reason more than any other reason. The technical reason, as Vivek was explaining, is to do with how the characters are coded, Indian language characters are coded. That makes the discoverability of content poor, and thereby the entire industry doesn't really feel the need to localize as much as they should have. So I think that's just a perspective I wanted to bring in, and I think this is a topic that we are definitely going to take up with Vivek and Reverie, because I think it merits a separate discussion. But just wanted to add to what Viraj and Sudhir said.
Great insights from everyone, and I think we've already overshot a little bit. So I guess right now we are open to questions and answer, like the Q&A session. So if there are any questions from our participants, then let's have them in the Q&A. Before that, I would like to thank all the panelists for their valuable inputs. It has absolutely been a great exploratory discussion session. Lot to learn, and it was definitely a great panel discussion. So if we can have okay, so let's just okay. So there are a couple of questions regarding the platform. So Partha, maybe you'll have to stick a little longer because we are going into the product presentation after the Q&A. So any other questions regarding our topics of discussion and the overall topic of discussion today?
I think there are some questions right on top initially, Siddharth. Maybe you could just one of them, I think is.
Yeah, I think like there is one question. Are we also trying voice cloning? Okay, so I don't understand the voice cloning.
No, so I know a little bit about voice cloning. It's an
Yeah,
interesting question. So I'm not sure if everybody understands what voice cloning is. Voice cloning is basically that, and it is in great demand these days, is let's say, there is a speaker who has spoken in English. When you dub the voice, the dubbed voice has to be in that original
that
voice.
voice, correct.
Right. So in India, we don't have that technology as of now. And, we know of a couple of companies in India who have started working on it. We can't name them, but it's a lot of investment. It's not an easy technology to build with perfection, and it's a lot of money. And I think if some large group with a funding may be able to do it for the Indian community, that may be the case. But I don't think it's an easy thing to do. But maybe I may be wrong. Things could come up. But as
Yeah,
of
yeah.
now, I'm aware of a couple of
Like
companies who are actually working on
I
it.
wanted to step in here. Like, yeah, voice cloning. Yeah, we know that. But again, that was a previous 2 years back story. Like, we need a huge investment to do that or something like that. Nowadays, there is a technology like if you are having 10 hours of voice of that person, definitely like you can do the speech to text and text to speech with the same voice. That is there, but the demand side is not much. Key telling that there will be only specific clients request that specific voice cloning facility. Rather than that, the people expect the mostly text to speech and speech to text, which is like merely like the people want to do their GTM plans very early. Maybe if it is a BFSI or something like that, and if it is internal training materials, rather than they will go to the voiceover and wait for 4 days, 5 days to get the voice was done or something like that. So that they try to use the machine voice, which is yes, somewhat like 80 to 90% will give the expected results out of that.
Right. So we have a question from Sairam Chitreddy, which is, as an engineer working on NMT, I have following doubts. How important is translation of code mixed language demand wise? Interesting question. Any?
Siddharth, this is your area.
So, I mean, tech wise, I understand your problems that you would be facing. Those are very, very intimidating problems. And there are a lot of so the approach is that works really well is having a rule based approach during your data preparation, and then moving on to your neural networks for doing the deep learning part of it. But demand-wise, I guess I'll have to consult all our panelists who are the industry experts.
I don't think that's the point I think Sandeep was making. We don't have enough structured data to be able to answer that question well. That's the whole problem.
Right.
That's true.
Right. So the next question is also from Sairam. So it is, are there any Indian languages which are being neglected? That is, for which there is demand for translation, but there are no good NMT baselines. Yeah, I mean, if I can maybe chip in for this question, then so Indian languages machine translation is basically one of the great machine learning problems or machine translation problems that we have, especially because of the nature of all the Indian languages, which have a complete different ordering semantics from all the other languages in the world. Like the most common popular languages with Latin script, their ordering semantics are completely different, and Indian languages are almost you can say, it is a very different order. And that is why, although English to French translation with even less data is very effective and very easy to build with open source frameworks. But with open source frameworks for Indian languages, which are so low on resource, it is absolutely difficult to build. And if I can take the liberty of saying, then Assamese, Odia, Punjabi, I guess these three languages are the ones with the least amount of resources. For like talking about the languages which at least have some kind of resource. Otherwise, the other rare languages that are there, like Nepali, Bodo, Dogri. So practically, you can consider that we do not have any sort of parallel corpus resources to even start looking at building machine translation for these NMTs. The third question is how much demand is there for translation of non-English foreign language text to Indian languages? Is it important enough for engineers to work on? Okay, Sairam. So I think Sairam is on a roll here, and he is probably using this platform for his product market fit surveys. Simply great, delightful questions. Thank you, Sairam. Anybody from the panel who would like to take up this question? So I'll just repeat the question. How much demand is there for translation of non-English foreign language text to Indian languages? So maybe like a French to Hindi sort of translation.
Sandeep can answer this.
We haven't seen much when it comes to our company, but I think it's a very company-specific answer.
I think we've had a lot of work from German to Marathi and German to Hindi, by the way. I've seen a little bit from Chinese as well, Chinese and Japanese as well. That's about it. These three language pairs into Indian languages.
Only the specific work when it comes to like any of the installation of the machine or something like that, we used to get that.
No, automobile is one sector where we see a lot of that content. So automobile and generally manufacturing and in general manufacturing sector in general.
So then also our solution will be like, yes, foreign language to English and then English to any of the Indian language. We don't get a resource who know both the languages.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Yes. Actually, that happens a lot.
Okay, Aditi Jain has a question. Is there any hope for rates to increase for Indian languages in translation?
I think rates will go down, productivity will go up, and incomes will go up. From a purely financial point of view, people need to understand the difference between rate and income.
Right. Absolutely. That is actually a great point made, Sandeep. Yeah.
Very well said.
Yes.
Just to add just one line to it. So all languages globally, the rates, it's not just about Indian languages. Globally, all rates, whether it is European languages, they are all coming down. And one of the tools that is causing it to come down is the MT, because if a lot of the content is getting, so basically the business is changing from pure translation, TEP kind of business to more post editing. So overall, that's the way the economics is completely changing. But like Sandeep pointed out, that while you may do 2000 words a day in TEP, you could probably do 8000 words as a post editing and probably earn similar or maybe a little bit more or whatever.
More, yeah.
That is true, actually. The next line. That is currently true, actually.
Yeah. So for all the other participants, I think the add-on or follow-up question is, but there is a huge gap in the Indian and European languages. So yeah, I mean, everybody, I guess, unanimously we acknowledge that the scene
today that is the case. Yes.
Yeah.
But then that is also the case for as far as income in international countries and Indian countries. So I don't think that in itself is something to go by. But I absolutely agree with what Sandeep said. The idea here is to earn the income, not look at the rates. And earning the income is quite possible with the technologies that is available. All you have to do is just like Vinay said, maybe reskill, upskill.
I'm sure Aditi will not be happy with that answer, but
That's true.
No, but there is a huge potential to earn much more than what she's earning, probably with less effort. I think that should motivate a lot of people. Otherwise, it's a lot of grunt work that translators used to do before they adopted technologies. Now there are tools that is available, and they just know where to look for, and it comes on its own. And so a lot of difficult grunt work has gone out of translation process as such. So I think there is a lot of possibility to not only just reduce the amount of work and stress in translation, but earn more.
Right. Great. I guess we have overshot quite a lot, and I think we'll have to wrap up this amazing session that we had. I'm really excited, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this entire discussion panel. Great questions, great insights from everyone. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, there are a couple of questions, so maybe you can note down and respond to those people later on, because I don't want anybody left out in the.
Yes.
I so maybe you can just take down those questions and maybe later on send down the answers.
Forward to Reveries Prabandhak showcase.
Okay. Okay. All right. So moving on to our product showcase, I'll just be sharing my screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible. I'm turning down the video for a while. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, Siddharth.
All right. So today's after the great panel discussion today, we now have come to the end of the panel discussion, and we are into the product showcase. And we at Reverie have been driving the mission towards bringing language equality on the internet for over a decade now. And today's product showcase is on one of our products called Prabandhak. So currently, as it is clearly evident from our panel discussion that the dynamics of the entire translation industry and this new market is changing. What it is seeing is a huge growth in demand. Some of the major contributing factors towards this growing demand is the rollout of new policies and mandates like the NEP that encourage adoption of native languages. The current pandemic demanded information dissemination in local languages at large scale. So it necessitated the digital content delivery in a big way. For the first time, the digital content consumption in rural India has surpassed the urban usage. Now, to cater to these rising demands, there is a definite need to match the supply side of the ecosystem as well. I think this completely resonates with our panel discussion as well. A lot of people also, or I think a couple of panelists, in fact, mentioned the same thing, that we have to enrich the supply side of this ecosystem so that we can meet the demand. And more so than ever, the industry is looking out for more and more translators covering wider range of languages and domain expertise. It has become important to bring together the clients, LSPs, and freelancers onto a common platform, and also to standardize workflows to maintain quality and consistency. Now, there are new and existing challenges and concerns too across different user segments that need to be addressed. If we look at the clients, among most clients, apprehensions still prevail regarding capability and scalability of executing large projects. Data security has already been pointed out in our panel discussion itself, that a lot of clients are actually having a lot of apprehensions towards data security. Dependable and consistent execution of their projects, transparent end-to-end project management, as well as accuracy continue to be some of the most important challenges or apprehensions that the client side has. Now, for most LSPs, the major challenges include discoverability of translators in rare languages, the remote project management with real-time tracking, and the lower technology adoption, as well as the non-standard practices that prevail across the translating community. Whereas in the freelancers community, the entire area of concern completely changes. So most translators use this trade as an alternate source of income. So in most of the cases, we see that there are non-serious translators who are more available for jobs and do not possess much of the domain expertise that we were discussing earlier. Formal training and industry certifications are also not standardized. So it is difficult for people to actually, even if they want to, it is very difficult for them to actually find these sort of formal training courses and industry certifications and then go forward to becoming a full-time translator. Also, finding relevant projects is very, very difficult. Now, if we combine all of these challenges and look at it from a panoramic view, we can visualize these pain points well dispersed into three categories, which is the industry being unorganized, it being unpredictable, and it being unscalable. Now, we at Reverie, we started our mission towards language equality on the internet over a decade ago. And in the past couple of years, after closely working with several different players of this particular ecosystem, we came up with a unique translation platform that actually works for everyone. Prabandhak is a platform for clients, LSPs, as well as freelancers. Now, with it, the three problems that we just mentioned above get solved because Prabandhak is a platform that helps you manage translation projects with predictable TAT and high quality at scale. Coming to a few of the features that our platform has and how it is essential and important to all these three industry segments. So Prabandhak provides analytics and dashboards for transparent and end-to-end management of the translation projects over the platform. It provides operational consistency and scalability. There is a productivity increase by up to 4x because a lot of things other than translation that comprise of the entire translation process, which is the file mining, the term-based the term-based creation, the addition of glossary, passing on instructions, all of those things which are not related to the core of the translation project, which is translation, proofreading, editing itself. So all of those things get automated through Prabandhak. Now there are standardized workflows where teams can get allocated, LSPs can work with different other LSPs by a standard protocol, and projects can be outsourced between different LSPs to freelancers, between clients and freelancers, or clients to LSPs. So there are as many combinations as possible. We have standardized protocols for all these sort of associations on the platform. So it provides you a great deal of ease while collaborating with others. Growth of your top line significantly because you are able to do more. You are able to access more projects that are published by clients on the marketplace. Now for the freelancers and the translators that work with the LSPs, we have an integrated CAT tool which is tuned to Indian languages and consists of a lot of productivity tools that increases the efficiency and the speed of translation as well. We have extensive file type support, over 30 plus file type support consisting of the most popular ones. We have extensive language support, which is 21 Indian languages and 53 international languages as of now. Now, one of the most important parts, which is if we are dealing with document translation, then styling and formatting again requires a lot of language background, whereas in Prabandhak, what we have done is using automation, we have automated styling and formatting problems as well. Now, if we go to the features that we are live with right now, so Prabandhak version 2 is live as of now. And what we have is a real-time collaboration hub. We have a marketplace where different sets of users can interact with each other. Everybody can publish projects on the marketplace and have any one of them into the team to work on those projects. The knowledge base consists of your domain specific translation memories and term bases as well. So we have a couple of nifty unique features like creating your glossary automatically. So our glossary finder actually finds out the most significant and important terminologies that consist within your source files. So you do not have to engage any human resource in order to go through the entire source file and then find out the most important terminologies and then prepare instructions and a dictionary. So all of those things completely solved through the use of technology. The automatic recompile of files actually enables us to retain the styling and formatting in our translated files as well without any kind of manual intervention. Now, the editing environment with the TM suggestions is available in 21 Indian languages and 53 international languages, as I was mentioning. The neural machine translation suggestions are available in 11 Indian languages, which we have also support from English to these languages as well as these languages into English. So the forward and backward translations both are supported on the platform. Now, the CAT tool productivity tools that I was mentioning. So often we have seen that in the traditional layout, what we do is any translator goes into a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet and starts translating. But whenever they want to find the meaning of a particular word or try to check if the spelling is correct or not, so they have to switch between screens. They have to go to a new screen. They have to go into a search engine and then validate whatever they are thinking. Even while typing, they have to install separate keyboards or extensions, browser extensions that can help them type. Whereas in Prabandhak, what we have is we have a spell checker that is tuned to Indian languages. We have an Indic spell checker, we have a dictionary, and we also have an integrated typing tool as well. Now, apart from all of this, we have automated QA and QC, which is completely automatic and is tuned for Indian languages. So in a lot of tools, like one of our panelists was mentioning, excuse me, we actually do not have a decent spell checker or dictionary in a lot of CAT tools which support international languages, because the behavior in Indian languages is significantly different than the most popular international languages. So our automated QA and QC actually is tuned towards Indian languages and thereby fits into the QA QC for other languages as well. And with that, our V2 is live, and for everyone who has attended today's event, please visit us at https://prabandhak.in to find out more about our product, or you can email us if you want to know more about the tool at prabandhak@revering.com. So that is pretty much it from Revery's side, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. I thank you. I thank everyone for joining us. The recording of this webinar will be soon up on our YouTube channel, and we'll also share it with you all. Thank you so much for joining in. Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for this great session. Lovely discussion, and thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.